I'm Rick Barth. I'm the Dean of the School of Social Work at the University of Maryland. I've been involved with the American Academy of Social Work and Social Welfare since 2009. For a long time, I was president of the Academy, and in that role was approached by Dean Flynn and Dean Uehara about the Academy becoming a partner in developing the Grand Challenges. So I've also been involved with the Grand Challenges since the outset, and in part of that role, I really thought it was important that as a leader of the Academy and of the Grand Challenges, that I also dig down and get involved with one of the Grand Challenges itself. So I have been a co-lead now of the Grand Challenge to Stop Family Violence, and that involved originally writing a paper about stopping severe and fatal maltreatment, one of the working papers that's still on the Academy website, and also engaging with colleagues who developed a paper on ending gender-based violence, the other working paper under the Stop Family Violence Grand Challenge. So this Grand Challenge is a terrific fit with all of the Grand Challenges because it really focuses on this critical family aspect. If the social is fundamental, then the family is really fundamental to social life. And this is one of the Grand Challenges that focuses on the family, although one of the working papers is about gender-based violence, which does not necessarily involve family members. We are working to kind of think about the ways that family violence occurs and the way that it also often precedes or contributes to later gender-based violence. The two papers have a different focus, but one of the objectives of the Grand Challenge to Stop Family Violence is to bring these two fields together. Social work has had a historic role in ending family violence. If you read about Linda Gordon's work, even in the latter part of the 19th century, you'll see that social work was involved with stopping family violence. The same would be true about reading Jane Addams. We've had leadership roles in child welfare since its very origins and continue to be the dominant profession providing child welfare services. Now, stopping child abuse and neglect is an area that doesn't necessarily fit into child welfare services very neatly because child welfare services is about responding to child abuse and neglect. So that part of the Grand Challenge has a bit more of a public health focus, which I think is also very consistent with other Grand Challenges, like the Grand Challenge to promote successful development of youth. Part of the effort then is to take this stopping child abuse and neglect, or ending child abuse and neglect, and figuring out how to combine it with the other very important work that social work has been a leader in, at least since the 1970s, which is responding to intimate partner violence and then also gender-based violence. So one of the ways we're working through this Grand Challenge, and we believe will have an impact on the field, is to really look for the commonalities between these two areas. Obvious commonality is that social work is deeply involved and committed to stopping child abuse and neglect and family violence and also gender-based violence. But right now, we often use different language. Just as an example, we talk about family reunification in child maltreatment, but it's family separation very often in gender-based violence. We talk about, in the VA, they're now talking about people who are experiencing violence and using violence, recognizing that many people are doing both. That's the kind of language that I think may help to bridge some of the differences between our fields. So we're trying to be very careful about the language that we use. We need to develop more common language to talk about these issues, but I think that's another piece that will be one of the byproducts of a successful Grand Challenge to Stop Family Violence. Violence between humans is one of the greatest problems that we have on the globe right now. We see massive amounts of violence in our communities. We continue to see high rates of family violence and child maltreatment. These things are all connected. So our belief is that if we can figure out ways to help families treat each other with more resolution of problems using methods other than coercion and violence, that will trickle up and that will have an impact on youth violence, and that will have an impact on partner violence and gender-based violence and community violence. So we see the need to tackle violence as absolutely critical to our society. We see it as critical to social work. Public health is probably the leading group with regard to addressing violence, which they have identified as a major public health issue. But they often don't have the kind of interventions that are needed. They don't have the social interventions. They don't have expertise working with families, reducing conflict, doing conflict resolution. Those are things that social work is doing, and we think that by taking them to scale, we can have an overall impact on the safety of society and the success of so many whose lives are derailed because they're victims of violence or because they're perpetrators of violence.